I stood at the counter, my hands shaking as I asked to withdraw $250. The marble floor of First National Bank felt cold under my worn sneakers. I kept my voice quiet, hoping no one would notice me. But someone did notice. The worst someone possible. $250? That's embarrassing. My sister Zara's voice cut through the busy bank like a knife. She worked there as their star financial advisor, always dressed in designer suits that cost more than most people's rent. Every head turned to look at me. The bank manager smirked from behind the counter. Customers whispered to each other. My cheeks burned with shame as Zara continued her performance. "People like you need to stop leeching off others," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped against her tablet as she shook her head in fake disappointment. I wanted to disappear into the floor. This was my sister, the person who should have loved me most in the world. Instead, she was destroying me in public. The teller handed me my money with a pitying look. Zara scoffed one last time. "You'll never be worth our time," she declared as her coworkers snickered behind their hands. I blinked back tears and walked away. My name is Kiana, and my whole life, I've been treated like a failure. It started when we were kids. Zara was 3 years older and everything I wasn't. She was loud, confident, and demanding. I was quiet, gentle, and easy to overlook. At every family dinner, she dominated the conversation. When she got straight A's, my parents threw parties. When I got straight A's too, they barely looked up from praising her latest achievement. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" became the soundtrack of my childhood. Zara was the golden child who could do no wrong. I was the afterthought who could do nothing right. She learned early that putting me down made her look better. Every insult, every cruel joke, every moment of public humiliation, it all fed her ego while crushing mine. By the time we reached adulthood, the pattern was set in stone. Zara was the successful one with the fancy job and expensive clothes. I was the disappointment who barely scraped by. At least that's what everyone believed. But what they didn't know was this: I wasn't the one who should be embarrassed. Not even close. Earlier that morning, I had seen her on my way to the coffee shop. An elderly woman sat on a park bench, her thin jacket doing nothing against the cold wind. She was shivering, but when I offered her money, she shook her head. "I don't take charity," she said with quiet dignity, "so I came up with a different plan. What if I buy you breakfast and a warm coat? Just as one person helping another." Her eyes softened and she nodded gratefully. That's why I needed the $250 from the bank. Not because I was broke or desperate, but because I wanted to help someone who needed it more than me. The coat would cost $180, breakfast another $20, and I wanted to get her some groceries too. But at the bank, I stayed silent about this. I let them think I was the failure they believed me to be. I let Zara humiliate me rather than defend myself. Later, as I watched the woman eat her warm meal and zip up her new coat, I whispered to myself, "You deserve kindness, even if no one else thinks you do." The woman smiled at me. A real, genuine smile that was worth more than all of Zara's approval. That night at family dinner, the torture continued. Zara bragged about her high-class clients while cutting her steak with surgical precision. She wore a new dress that probably cost more than most people made in a week. "I had 3 millionaire clients today," she announced, making sure everyone was listening. "It's so rewarding to work with people who actually understand money." Then she turned to me with that familiar, cruel smile. "Speaking of money, I saw Kiana at the bank today scraping together pennies," she said, laughing. "Some of us work for our money, while others just, well, we all know what Kiana does." My parents chuckled along with her joke. They always took her side. I sat there eating my dinner in silence, feeling smaller with every word. "Maybe you should get a real job," my father suggested, not even looking at me. "Zara could probably get you something entry-level at the bank." Zara's eyes sparkled with delight. "Oh, I don't think they hire people without experience, Dad. Kiana would need to start at the very bottom." I chewed my food slowly, staying quiet as always. But inside, I was thinking, one day, you'll all regret laughing at me. Back in my small apartment, I finally let the tears fall. Not because I was poor or struggling, but because the people who should love me most treated me like garbage. I cried for the little girl who never got praised. I cried for the teenager who ate lunch alone because her sister told everyone she was weird. I cried for the adult who still couldn't get basic respect from her own family. But then I wiped my eyes and whispered one word: enough. I was done being their punching bag, done being treated like I was worthless, done hiding who I really was. I walked to my desk and opened my laptop. The screen lit up, showing my private investment portfolio. Account after account, each one worth millions. Stock holdings, real estate, business investments, all adding up to a fortune most people couldn't even imagine. I'd built this empire quietly over the past 15 years. While Zara was spending her paycheck on designer clothes and fancy dinners, I was investing every penny I could spare. I lived in a modest apartment and drove an old car, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Money didn't define me the way it defined my family, but maybe it was time they knew the truth. I stared at the numbers on my screen: $847 million in liquid assets, plus properties and businesses worth even more. I was officially a billionaire, and nobody knew. I'd built my wealth through careful investments and several companies I owned through private trusts. My name wasn't on any Forbes lists because I preferred anonymity. Let other rich people chase fame and attention. I just wanted to grow my money and help people quietly. For years, I'd donated millions to charity without anyone knowing. I'd funded scholarships, built homeless shelters, and supported medical research. The $250 I withdrew today was pocket change, literally. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Marcus, my financial advisor and one of the few people who knew my real worth. "Kiana, I have interesting news," he said. "First National Bank has been begging us to bring you on as a private client. They're desperate to manage accounts your size." I felt a chill run down my spine. "Which bank?" "First National, the one downtown. They've assigned their top advisor to court you. Her name is Zara Williams." I nearly dropped the phone. Of course it was her. "They don't know who I am yet?" I asked. "No, they just know there's a billionaire they want to land. Should I set up a meeting?" I smiled for the first time all day. "Yes, let's see how my dear sister treats her mystery client." The next family dinner was another Zara show. She practically glowed as she told everyone about her biggest opportunity yet. "I'm meeting with a billionaire client next week," she announced, cutting her salmon delicately. "The bank manager personally assigned them to me. Landing this account will guarantee my promotion to senior partner." My parents hung on every word like she was announcing a cure for cancer. "How exciting," my mother gushed. "You're so talented, sweetheart. I always knew you'd be successful." Zara basked in their praise, then turned her attention to me like a cat playing with a mouse. "Some of us actually work hard for money," she said with a laugh. "Right, Kiana? Maybe you can learn something from watching how real professionals operate." I took a sip of water and nodded politely. "I'm sure you'll do great with your billionaire client." "I will," she said confidently. "Rich people appreciate competence. They can spot quality from a mile away." Inside, I was smirking. "Oh, Zara, you have no idea what's coming." "A billionaire client, huh?" I said casually. "I can't wait to see how you handle someone with that much money." Her smile widened. "Trust me, I know exactly how to treat people who matter." That night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, having the biggest internal debate of my life. Should I reveal the truth or stay hidden forever? Part of me wanted to keep living quietly. I'd never needed their approval before. Why start now? But another part of me was exhausted from being treated like dirt. I wasn't asking to be worshipped, just treated with basic human decency. Was that too much to ask from my own family? My phone buzzed with a text from my friend Maya, one of the few people who knew my secret. We'd met in college, and she'd watched my family treat me badly for years. "Sometimes you have to teach people how to treat you," her message read. "They'll never respect you until they see your value." She was right. I'd spent my whole life trying to earn love that should have been freely given. Maybe it was time for a different approach. I looked at myself in the mirror. Really looked. I saw a successful woman who'd built an empire from nothing. I saw someone who helped others and asked for nothing in return. I saw someone worthy of respect. It was time my family saw her too. I picked up my phone and called Marcus. Set up the meeting with Zara. It's time she met her billionaire client. The next morning, Marcus called the bank personally. I listened on speakerphone as he spoke with the manager. My client has decided to move forward with First National, Marcus said in his professional voice. She'd like to meet with your top advisor. I believe her name is Zara Williams. Absolutely. The manager practically shouted into the phone. We're thrilled to have the opportunity. When would be convenient? Tomorrow at 2 p.m., Marcus replied smoothly. My client prefers privacy, so please have a private office ready. Of course. We'll roll out the red carpet. Can you tell me her name for our records? You'll meet her tomorrow, Marcus said mysteriously. She values discretion. After he hung up, I felt my heart racing. This was really happening. In less than 24 hours, Zara would come face to face with the sister she'd always treated like garbage, except this time I'd be holding all the power. I spent the evening choosing my outfit carefully. Nothing too flashy. I wanted to look successful but not obvious. A simple black dress, modest jewelry, and my grandmother's pearl earrings. Understated power. I barely slept that night, my mind spinning with anticipation. I walked into First National Bank at exactly 2 p.m. The difference in treatment was immediate and jarring. Staff members I'd never seen before rushed to greet me with bright smiles and eager handshakes. Miss Williams is waiting for you in our Platinum Client Suite, the manager gushed, practically bowing as he spoke. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Tea? Sparkling water? I'm fine, thank you, I said calmly. He led me to a glass-walled office I'd never seen before. Apparently they had fancy rooms for important clients. Zara was inside, wearing her best suit and practicing her sales pitch in the mirror. When she saw me through the glass, her face went through several emotions at once. Confusion, recognition, and then pure shock. I walked in slowly, savoring the moment. Hello, Zara, I said with a slight smile. She stood frozen behind her desk, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. The manager appeared beside me, completely oblivious to the tension. Miss Williams, meet your new billionaire client, he announced proudly. I know you'll take excellent care of her. Zara's face had gone completely pale. Lucky me, she whispered. The next 20 minutes were the most satisfying of my entire life. Zara, clearly panicking, flipped into fake kindness mode. Her voice went up 2 octaves as she launched into investment pitches with forced enthusiasm. We have some incredible opportunities for high-net-worth individuals like yourself, she chirped, shuffling through papers with shaking hands. Our premium accounts offer exclusive benefits and personalized service. The bank staff kept peeking through the glass walls, whispering to each other. They'd never seen Zara act so nice. She was known for being cold and demanding, especially with smaller clients. Our wealth management team has decades of experience, she continued, her smile looking more strained by the minute. We pride ourselves on building lasting relationships with our most valued clients. I sat quietly, letting her ramble. She kept glancing at me nervously, probably wondering if I was going to expose her right there. Finally, I held up my hand to stop her mid-sentence. Zara, I said calmly, this is all very interesting, but I have to ask you something. She leaned forward eagerly. Of course, anything you need to know. I paused for dramatic effect, then smiled slightly. Funny, yesterday you said I wasn't worth your time. The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Zara's fake smile froze on her face like a broken mask. The bank manager, who had been hovering nearby, stammered and stepped closer to our table. I'm sure that's just a misunderstanding, he said quickly, his face flushing red. Zara would never say something like that to a valued client. But I could see in his eyes that he was remembering yesterday's scene. He'd been the one smirking when Zara humiliated me. Now he realized that the nobody he'd watched get mocked was sitting across from him with billions in assets. Zara's hands were visibly trembling now. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. The other staff members pressed closer to the glass walls, sensing drama. Some of them had phones out, probably recording what they thought would be a routine client meeting. I stood up slowly, deliberately, letting the silence stretch out. Every eye in the bank was on us now. Maybe I should take my business elsewhere, I said clearly, my voice carrying across the quiet room. Several employees gasped audibly. The manager's face went from red to white in seconds. No, please, he practically shouted. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. Please, let's sit down and work this out. I remained standing, looking down at my sister, who was still frozen in shock. The manager literally blocked the door, his arms spread wide like he was guarding a treasure. Please, Miss Williams, don't leave. We can resolve whatever happened. Other staff members gathered around, their faces panicked. Losing a billionaire client would be a disaster for the bank, and everyone knew it. Zara finally found her voice, though it came out as a shaky whisper. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. I would never intentionally. She was stumbling over her words, her perfect composure completely shattered. This was the same woman who'd humiliated me in front of everyone just yesterday. I apologize profusely, she continued, louder now. There was clearly a miscommunication. Please forgive me. The manager nodded frantically. Yes, just a miscommunication. These things happen all the time. But I could see right through their panic. They weren't sorry for how they'd treated me. They were sorry they'd gotten caught treating a billionaire badly. I looked around the room at all the desperate faces staring at me. The power dynamic had completely flipped. Yesterday I was the nobody they could mock. Today I was the client they'd do anything to keep. I paused at the door, my hand on the handle. If I stay, I said slowly, I have conditions. Everyone held their breath, waiting. I turned back to face the room full of anxious bank employees. Zara was still sitting at the conference table, looking like she wanted to disappear. My first condition, I said clearly, is that Zara apologizes properly. To everyone she's disrespected here. Zara's eyes went wide with horror. The manager started to speak, but I held up my hand to stop him. Not to me, I continued. To all the customers and staff she's treated badly because she thought they weren't worth her time. The room was completely silent. You could feel the tension in the air like electricity before a storm. Zara looked around at her coworkers, many of whom were nodding. They'd seen her dismiss smaller clients, roll her eyes at people with modest accounts, and act like she was doing them a favor by helping them. Yes, of course, she whispered. And louder this time, I added firmly. They deserve to hear it clearly. The manager was sweating now, torn between protecting his employee and keeping his biggest client happy. But the choice was obvious. I was worth more to the bank than Zara ever would be. Zara, he said quietly, please do as Miss Williams asks. She stood up slowly, her face burning red with embarrassment. Zara cleared her throat and faced the crowd that had gathered. Bank employees, customers waiting in line, even the security guard, everyone was watching. I want to apologize, she began, her voice shaking. I haven't always treated people with the respect they deserve. A few people pulled out their phones to record. This was exactly the kind of workplace drama that went viral on social media. I've been rude to customers with smaller accounts, dismissive of coworkers, and, she glanced at me, her eyes filling with tears, cruel to people who didn't deserve it. Her voice grew stronger as she continued. Everyone deserves respect, regardless of how much money they have in their account. I'm sorry to anyone I've made feel small or unwelcome here. The apology echoed through the marble lobby. Some customers nodded approvingly. A few employees whispered to each other, probably remembering times she'd been awful to them too. When she finished, the silence stretched out uncomfortably. She looked at me with pleading eyes, waiting for some sign of forgiveness. I simply nodded once, giving nothing else away. The crowd slowly dispersed, but I could see people already posting on social media. By tomorrow, the video of Zara's public apology would be everywhere. By the next morning, the clip of Zara's apology was all over social media. Someone had posted it with the caption, "Bank advisor forced to apologize after insulting billionaire client who turned out to be her sister." The video had thousands of views and hundreds of comments. People were sharing their own stories about being treated badly by bank employees, retail workers, and other service people who judged them by their appearance. My phone started ringing early. First my mother, then my father, then several relatives I barely spoke to. They'd all seen the video or heard about it from friends. "Kiana, sweetie," my mother's voice was sickeningly sweet. "We saw the news about the bank. Is it true? Are you really wealthy?" I finished for her. "Yes, Mom, I am." "But how? When? Why didn't you tell us?" I could picture her mind racing, trying to figure out how she'd missed the signs, how she'd been wrong about her own daughter for so many years. "I've been building my business quietly," I said calmly. "Some of us actually work hard for our money." I couldn't resist using Zara's own words back at them. The irony was too perfect. "We're so proud of you," she gushed, as if she hadn't spent years ignoring my achievements and praising only Zara. "I have to go, Mother. I'm busy." I hung up before she could respond. That evening, Zara called me directly. Her voice was small and desperate, nothing like the confident woman who'd mocked me days before. "Kiana, please, can we talk privately?" I let her sweat for a few seconds before responding. "What do you want, Zara?" Please don't destroy me. I know you have every right to be angry, but I'll change. I promise I'll be different." I could hear her crying on the other end of the phone. The golden child who'd never faced real consequences was finally understanding what it felt like to be powerless. "Everyone at work is talking about me," she continued. "Some people are calling me a bully. The manager is reviewing my performance. I could lose my job." Part of me felt satisfied hearing her panic. She'd spent years making me feel exactly this, helpless and afraid, but a bigger part of me just felt tired. I didn't want revenge, I wanted respect. "Then prove you've changed," I said quietly, "starting now." "How? Tell me what to do." "Be better, Zara. Treat people the way you'd want to be treated if you were in their shoes." "I will. I swear I will." "We'll see," I said, and hung up. Over the next week, I watched my sister transform before my eyes. She greeted every customer with genuine politeness, regardless of their account balance. She helped elderly clients with their paperwork instead of rushing them along. She even thanked the janitor for keeping the building clean. The change was so dramatic that other employees started laughing about it behind her back. "What happened to the Ice Queen?" they whispered. "Did someone replace her with a pod person?" I visited the bank a few times that week, ostensibly to finalize my account setup, but really to observe. Zara didn't know I was watching, but I saw everything. When a homeless man came in to cash a small check, instead of calling security like she used to, she helped him personally and even gave him information about local services. When a young mother got frustrated trying to understand a loan application, Zara sat with her patiently and explained every detail. It was like watching someone remember how to be human. During one of my visits, the bank manager approached me privately. "Miss Williams, I wanted to discuss something with you," he said nervously. "If you were to make a significant investment with us, you'd automatically qualify for shareholder privileges. You'd have influence over bank policies and procedures." I raised an eyebrow. "What kind of influence?" "Well, you could propose changes to how we treat customers, employee training programs, community outreach, that sort of thing." Now that was interesting. Let me tell you how I really built my fortune, because it wasn't luck or inheritance. It was 15 years of careful strategy while everyone thought I was failing. Right after college, while Zara was buying expensive clothes and going to fancy restaurants, I was living in a tiny studio apartment and investing 80% of my income. I wore the same 5 outfits, ate ramen noodles, and walked everywhere to save money. My first big break came when I noticed a small tech company whose stock was undervalued. I bought shares when they cost $3 each. 2 years later, they were worth $180 per share. Instead of celebrating or upgrading my lifestyle, I reinvested every penny. Then, I started buying rental properties in neighborhoods that were about to gentrify. I studied market trends, read financial reports until my eyes burned, and made calculated risks when others were too scared to act. By year 5, I had my first million. By year 10, I had 50 million. By year 15, I crossed into billionaire territory. Through it all, I lived modestly. Not because I had to, but because I valued experiences over possessions. The $250 I withdrew for that homeless woman meant more to me than any designer handbag ever could. But sometimes, being humble isn't enough. Sometimes people need to see your worth before they'll treat you with respect. The quarterly shareholder meeting was held in the bank's conference room on the top floor. I arrived wearing a simple navy dress and my grandmother's pearl necklace, understated but elegant. The room was full of the bank's biggest investors, all men in expensive suits who probably assumed I was someone's assistant. They barely glanced at me as I took a seat in the back row. The bank president began his presentation about quarterly profits and future projections. Everything was going smoothly until he reached the final agenda item. Before we close, I'm excited to introduce our newest major shareholder, he announced with a huge smile. Her investment represents the largest single deposit in our bank's history. Please welcome Miss Kiana Williams. Every head in the room turned toward me. I stood slowly and walked to the front, feeling dozens of surprised eyes tracking my movement. Thank you, I said simply, taking the microphone. I'm looking forward to working with all of you to make First National a bank that truly serves its entire community. Polite applause filled the room, but I could see the confusion on their faces. I was younger than they expected, female when they assumed male, and modest when they expected flashy. Through the glass walls, I could see bank employees gathering to watch. Zara stood among them, her face a mixture of pride and shock as she watched her little sister address a room full of millionaires. The aftermath of the shareholder meeting was swift and dramatic. Word spread quickly that Kiana Williams, the quiet sister everyone had dismissed, was now one of the bank's most powerful investors. My parents' attitude shifted overnight in the most predictable way possible. Suddenly, they remembered every small success I'd ever had and claimed they'd always believed in me. We always knew you were special, my father said during an uncomfortable phone call. Remember how I used to say you were destined for great things? He'd never said that. Not once. I'm just so proud to be your mother, Mom gushed. I can't wait to tell everyone at the country club about your success. Of course, it was always about how my achievements could benefit her social standing. I kept the conversations short and polite but distant. Forgiveness would take time if it came at all. The real test came that Friday evening when I heard a soft knock on my apartment door. Through the peephole, I saw Zara standing in the hallway, her eyes red from crying. She wasn't wearing designer clothes or perfect makeup. She looked small and vulnerable, more like the sister I remembered from childhood than the cruel woman she'd become. I opened the door slowly. Please, she whispered, I need to talk to you. We sat on my couch in uncomfortable silence for several minutes. Zara kept starting to speak, then stopping as if she couldn't find the right words. Finally, she broke down completely. I've been jealous of you my entire life, she sobbed, her perfect composure crumbling. Everyone always said how smart you were, how kind you were. I hated feeling like I was second best, so I convinced myself that being louder and more successful made me better. I handed her a tissue and waited for her to continue. I thought putting you down would make me feel bigger, she said, wiping her eyes. But it never worked. It just made me feel uglier inside. She looked at me with desperate eyes. I turned into someone I hate. Someone who judges people by their bank accounts and treats service workers like garbage. I became everything that's wrong with the world. Her honesty was painful to hear, but it felt real in a way her bank apology hadn't. I don't know how to undo 15 years of being awful, she whispered. But I want to try. I want to be the sister you deserved all along. I studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation or fake emotion, but all I saw was genuine regret and a desperate hope for redemption. Then stop acting like someone you're not, I said quietly. Start acting like someone you want to be. Forgiveness didn't happen overnight. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. But I decided to give Zara a chance to prove she'd really changed. I forgive you, I told her, but things can't go back to the way they were. Respect, for me, for others, for yourself, isn't optional anymore. She nodded through her tears. I understand. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'll spend every day trying to earn it. Over the following weeks, I watched her carefully. The changes seemed genuine. She volunteered at a homeless shelter on weekends. She started treating service workers with kindness and gratitude. She even began standing up to our parents when they made cruel comments about other people. At the bank, her transformation continued. She advocated for customers instead of just pushing them toward the most profitable products. She mentored new employees instead of competing with them. She became the kind of person I'd always hoped she could be. One day, as we shared coffee at a small cafe, she looked at me with clear eyes. I want us both to succeed, she said sincerely. Not at each other's expense, but together. Is that possible? For the first time in years, I smiled at my sister, a real, genuine smile. Yes, I said, I think it is. Using my influence as a major shareholder, I pushed First National to implement new customer service policies. Every client, regardless of account size, would be treated with equal respect and courtesy. The bank created training programs about bias and discrimination. They established a community outreach program to help underserved populations access banking services. They even set up financial literacy classes for low-income families. Zara became one of the program's biggest champions. She led training sessions for other employees and personally handled many of the community outreach cases. It feels good to help people instead of just extracting money from them, she told me one day as we reviewed the program's success metrics. The changes weren't just cosmetic, they were fundamental. The bank's culture shifted from profit at any cost to sustainable growth through genuine customer care. Other branches started asking about our model. Financial news outlets wrote articles about First National's revolutionary approach to inclusive banking. During our quarterly review meeting, the bank president announced that customer satisfaction scores had reached all-time highs, while profitability remained strong. "This proves you can do well by doing good," I said to the room full of shareholders. After the meeting, Zara approached me in the hallway. "Thank you," she said simply, "for giving me a chance to become someone better." I hugged my sister for the first time in years.